Hello everyone, and in this video we're going to be looking at how we can interchange buildings and basically focus on buildings in our specific city, and basically how we can upgrade its textures, basically to give it more detail. I'm also going to show you a couple of versions of the same city, one more low poly, one's more high poly, excuse me, and depending on the one that you want to use, based on your application. So for example, if you're doing a runtime application, you might want to use the low poly because of performance it's better. But for example, if you're doing renders or a cinematic, you might want to use the high poly version with upgraded textures, basically just to improve the visual quality. So let's go ahead and import right away. First of all, before we do that, I'm in a blank project in Unreal Engine 5 here, and I'm going to create a new level. I'm going to go into new level, and I'm going to do a new level time a day. Excuse me, because we're going to have the day-night cycle here, where we can move the sun around and basically just change the entire lighting of our scene dynamically, which is pretty great. I'm just going to go ahead and delete our default meshes here and our text, just to get it out of the way. There we go. And I'm just going to press save all, and it's going to ask us to save our level, and we're just going to call it test level. And you can see that it's going to be on our content browser. Now, if I go over here into our folder where we have all our types of levels of detail of our city, we see that the level 2 here is the lowest poly version. So I'm going to import that first and show you how it looks. So it's basically a standard FBX file, which we can just drag and drop into our content browser here. Actually, before I do that, I need to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it level 2. And now we can import that. So let's drag and drop that into over here. We can leave everything by default, everything's going to be okay. It's going to create a couple of new materials which have no textures, it's just base colors. And now we can click import all, and now we wait a couple of minutes for it to import. Okay, so my meshes have imported and they have compiled its shaders. I just went ahead and basically clicked on save all. Now you can see that we have our materials and now we have our individual meshes here. So we can just select the first one, shift click the last one, and we can drag and drop into our scene here. And let's just reset over our location 2000 of all our meshes. Now you can see that they are quite there in the distance, but we can just quickly move our pivot, just drag it outside of the scene here, just to move it a little bit closer. And we can now increase our camera speed, and you can see that it's going to be okay. And there is. Now this is a super low poly version. You can see there's not that much detail, but it still looks good. But this is really ideal for runtime applications. And if we go into a building, for example, or let's select all the buildings which are together in a mesh. Let's open that up. And if we go over into our information, you can see that all the buildings have very low vertices. So it's below 100K. This is very, very good for this amount of detail in, for example, in the entire city. Normally, this is the amount of vertices that you would see in a normal prop in a video game. So this is super, super good in terms of performance. And it's very, very cheap in the graphics card, uh, especially because it doesn't even have textures and anything. So it's very, very good. So let's just go ahead and save our level with this added in, and let's proceed. Um, let me check my list here. Now the next thing that I want to do, let's go back into our models here. And if I go back, you can see that we now have a couple more levels. So we're going to be starting by importing level 3 here. And you can see that we have a 1 FBX, which is going to import a bunch of individual meshes and a big amount of textures. So we can just go over here and create a new folder, call it level 3, and we can go ahead and import that. So we can just drag and drop our FBX file over here. Actually, before we do that, let's cancel and let's create a master material, because we have a bunch of textures. For performance, we better create a master material for all those materials that are going to be created, so they can be created as an instance, as not as each individual material, because that affects performance. If it's a material instance, it will compile faster and it will cost less in runtime. So let's call it m_master over the entire content browser. Let's save it, open it up. And we only need one thing right now, which is, excuse me, which is a texture sample. So let's search for that. It's going to be under texture and texture sample. We can connect that into the base color. It's going to give us an error because we need to give it a default texture. Just select a random one from the list. It's going to be okay. This is going to get overridden by the textures that we're going to import. And then we need to convert this to a parameter. I'm going to call this base texture. And it looks good. So now we can go ahead and apply and save it. And that should be everything that we need. So let's go back into our content browser, go into the level 3 folder. Sorry about that, I opened Discord by mistake. Let's drag and drop our FBX file into our content browser. And now we're going to leave everything by default, but we're going to go into the material. Instead of local, no, that's okay. Instead of material import create new materials, we're going to be create new instance materials. As the base material, we're going to give it the one that we just created, m_master. And we're going to have a bunch of overrides here on the base texture properties, which are the only textures that we have. We're going to override it for the base texture. That was the parameter that we created. And now we should be able to import all. And it should take a couple of minutes, but it's going to import all the materials as a material instance with our textures properly assigned into each mesh. So let me go ahead and pause, and I'll be back once it finishes. Okay, so it finished compiling, and I also saved everything. So now you can see that we have our material instance here with all the textures assigned and our entire buildings here. One of the things I want to do is go over into this icon, and I want to filter just the static meshes. Now I'm gonna drag or select the first one, then select the last one, and shift click on it. And now I want to drag everything into our level. You can already see it there in the distance. Now I'm going to reset this back to 0. And I'm just going to move my city here side by side with the other one. So let's try and do that. Doesn't need to be perfect. Now you can see that they are the exact same buildings, the same exact structure, but obviously this one has textures. Now this is only the like the lowest resolution textures. So now the next procedure, I'm going to show you how to import specific buildings with the higher resolution models, with higher resolution textures. Just before I do that, I just want to go deselect the filter here. I want to go back into the content and go into the master material. I just want to add a scalar parameter, so I'm going to hold one and click, connect this to the roughness, and I'm going to set the default back to 1. Then I'm going to convert this to a parameter, which I'm going to call roughness, and I'm going to apply and save. Obviously, because it's our master material, it's going to affect all the buildings. Excuse me. This is one of the good things of having a master material for all the textures, which means I can now easily add to all the buildings at the same time. But I just want to go into our water here, find that material instance, open it up, and I just want to make the roughness 0. And that reason is so we can get a little better reflections on the water. As you can see, we can now see our buildings reflected on it. That's pretty good. So let's go back over here into our buildings there. I'm going to go into the level 3 improved texture, and that's going to give us just 2 buildings with improved textures. You can see the textures over here. They are bigger in size because they are bigger in resolution, and I want to import those in. So I'm just going to create a folder for them, and I'm going to call this level 3 improved, just so I know it's the improved version. I'm going to grab the 0.fpx because these are the ones with the correct coordinates. I'm going to grab them both and just drag them in. And I believe, yeah, I believe I can just import them like this using the material instance as well. And yeah, import all. And now I have to wait again. It shouldn't take long because it's just 2 buildings. So I'll probably just wait without pausing. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab these buildings and we're going to place them in the city. We're going to I'm going to show you how you can find the exact spot or where the other buildings are and just replace them. And I can see that we got some messages. You probably got these messages on the other imports too. This is normal stuff that Unreal Engine gives you. It's the way that you prepare these models in the 3D software. It doesn't really matter because these are just warnings. If they were red, which would mean that it were actual errors and not import warnings, you will actually be worried, but in this case you can just ignore these warnings that Unreal gives you. Now let's go over here. You can see now your buildings here, and you can also open them up. Just to take a look. You probably need to speed up the camera. But yeah, you can go over here and see that the textures are way higher quality than normal. We're going to be able to see the difference really when you put them into the scene. So let's just grab this and save all. There we go. Now we can grab these. I'm going to drag this first one here. Drag them into the scene. And I can say that, well, how do we find the exact same spot? It's very simple. Let's reset these back to 0. And you can see it's going to be over here. But now, remember, all these meshes are in the same exact position here. So you can select any building, and the location is going to be the exact same. This is because they all have the same pivot. So what you can do is that you can copy this location from any building in the city, and paste that into this location of the building that we just dragged, and then you can see that it nested perfectly in location. But now you can see that it's still overlapping with the other one. So I'm going to grab its pivot, and I'm going to just raise it slightly, and I'm going to grab the one below. Right over here, you can already see the difference in quality. You can see you can actually read perfectly, and you can see just overall improve in detail. This is because I believe these are manually worked textures, and these are the ones from the photo scans, which basically these ones are just improved. Now you can go ahead into this model here. Instead of completely destroying it or deleting it, I'm just going to move it backwards or below the ground, so we can just get it back easily if we want to. We can just go over here and see where it is. And now I'm going to go back into this model. I'm just going to paste the location again, and you can see it now nests perfectly in place with our improved textures here. And what I'm going to do, later on I want to make some renders here. So I think I'm just going to do a static render first, just of this building, something like that. So I'm just going to go into F11, and I'm going to go up here, high resolution screenshot, and I'm just going to press the take screenshot here from this preview. You can see how it looks if you go over here. You open that up, and you can see the screenshot. There we go. But I also want to create a video sequence here. Later on, once we have both buildings that we have, I want to basically just see the improved version of both. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, I think, yeah, over here into cinematics, I'm going to have a level sequence here. I'm going to save it in the content browser. I'm just going to leave the default name. It's going to open up. I'm going to nest the sequence over here. There you go. And now we can just do this. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to go over here and add a new camera. So you can just go over here into this little icon here, create a new camera and set it as the current camera cut. And I can see that it's going to be super zoomed in. We're going to check the settings in a bit, but you can see that we are now piloting the camera. I'm going to click on this little icon to eject. And now you can see that the camera is actually over here. So I just want to save this camera over here in place. I'm going to go into our content browser here and just save everything. Because now I want to add my second building here. So I'm just going to drag it into the scene again, reset this back to 0. I'm going to paste the location that we have. Let me focus. There you go. The building's over here. I'm going to, let me find the pivot. Going to move it slightly above. You can see again the difference in quality is huge, which is pretty nice. I'm going to select this building here. I'm going to move it down. And just basically paste the location again so it snaps into place. Super perfect. And now we can take another screenshot of this. I think I'm gonna go up here. Let me reduce the camera speed. There you go. Again, going to F11, I want a static screenshot right now, so I'm gonna go into high resolution screenshot, take another one, press F11 again, and now I'm going to go and add another camera. So I'm gonna go, I think, yeah, over here or something. I think it doesn't really matter. And now create a new camera. Now you can see that in our list we have 2 cameras, and I'm going to stop piloting this. There you go, like that. And now just going to the content browser, just make sure and save everything. Let me just take a look at my list here to see what I need to do next. Yeah, so the next thing I want to do is improve or import the texture terrain upgrade. So I want to have an improved terrain here. So let's go back over here. Let's go into our folders. We have the improved road terrain textures. Now, these ones don't have a mesh yet. They are just in textures. So I'm going to show you how we can replace. It should be super easy. But let's go into our content browser here, create a new folder, and I'm going to call it road textures improved. And we can just go ahead, select them both, and drag them into our engine here. And it will automatically import. Excuse me. Let me just save everything. Okay. So I think these textures are named exactly as they should. So if I go over into our world outliner, let me see if I can dock this. Yeah, dock in layout. I want to just dock it so I can actually see it. And I'm going to add the sequencer back to over here. And I want to go into the world outliner and type this coordinates here. So I'm just going to grab them all and paste the name here. Excuse me. Going to remove the improved. And I believe this is it. So now you can see that if we select the row there, give me just a sec. Sorry about that. You can see that if we select the row there, you can now see it outlined here, and you see that we have our material instance here. Now this is going to be easy. We can just browse the texture here, open it up, and now you can go back into our folder, into our road texture improved, select the texture that we want, and assign it here. Click on this little use icon, and you can see that we are using the improved version. Now, it's not going to need to compile or anything. You can just see the improved road textures. They just simply switched, and they look like that. So now we have our terrain improved, and I believe, yeah, if you just click on the side of the roads, you're going to see that we have now selected the terrain, and now you can again browse for that instance here, open it up, go back, find our texture, which is the second one here, and now just click on the little use icon here, save it, and now you can see that we have a little bit of improvement in resolution with both versions. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take another screenshot. So I'm going to go something like that, or I guess like that, into the bridge. Let me go, I'm going to press G to go into game mode so we can hide the little icon there. I'm going to take another screenshot like that. Excuse me. And I'm going to press G again to get that back. Going to F11. And that's it for the improved textures on the road, which is super easy to do. We just need to replace the textures. And I believe that now if we go into our folder, we only have one thing left to import, which is the level 4. We have some of the max files in the Cinema 4D, but we want the FBXs here, and they are simply just 2 buildings that, again, we can replace, which are the highest level of detail here. So we can just go create a new folder, call it level 4, and let's import those buildings. like that. And I believe they have no textures, so we don't really need to do the material instance thing. So we can just go over here and do create new materials to remove that function, and the rest we can leave by default and just click import. Okay, so the building has imported. You can see that it only has a a fair amount of materials there with base colors, and then it's divided into a lot of excuse me. Damn, I don't know what that is. What the hell? Sorry about that. You can see that all the buildings are divided into pieces. Well, it's actually just two buildings. And you can see that, yeah, they all have their own materials and everything. But before we go into these buildings, I just want to make the cinematic that we were preparing. So if we go back into sequencer here, we can find our cameras. So let's go into the world outliner, search for a camera, and we can find our first camera, which was in this building. I think I might want to, well, first of all, I'm going to delete the settings here. I'm going to leave the spawn and the transform. I'm going to select the camera, and I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to pilot it. Just because I want to see how it looks. And then I'm going to go into the camera settings here. I'm going to disable constraint aspect ratio, so we don't get any black bars. And then I'm going to change the, not that, the focus settings. I'm going to disable the focus. And I want to, yeah, I want to change the current focal length. I'm going to decrease it until the current horizontal FOV is 90, which is the normal of the cameras in Unreal. So something like that. And I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to just record this camera position. So I'm going to go into transform here. I'm going to click in this little key to add a keyframe. You can see that that will appear there. Now I'm going to go somewhere up here. I'm going to go, I don't know, into a second or 100 frames in this case, and I'm going to find the second camera. So I'm going to pilot it. Oh, I'm actually piloting the other camera. Okay, that's going to be fine. So I'm going to go exactly to the same place of this camera here, something like that. And now I'm going to press the, into the first camera, I'm going to press the transform keyframe again. Now you can see that we have two keyframes. I'm going to go ahead and delete this camera. I was just using it for reference, which is, it's the second camera. And I'm going to go over here to the cinematic camera actor. The second one, I'm going to delete it entirely. So we only have one. And now you can see that you can go between one building to the other. And one of the things I want to do, well, I'm going to go into this keyframe, I'm going to add it up here. So this is going to be the last frame. And I just want to go up here, and I want to rotate my camera right, like that. And the reason I want to do that, it's so I can now click on the transform. And so as we go from this to here, we are actually always looking at the building. I just don't want to just make a translation to the left. I want to keep looking at the building for a bit until we switch to the other one. And then it will end up there. There we go. And I think that looks pretty good. Now, obviously, you can add your own keyframes, do whatever you want, because this is really, up to you. I'm not even good at this kind of stuff, so that's going to be fine. Now, I just want to go over here into the sequencer, and I want to render this movie into a video. I'm going to do a video sequence AV. Obviously, this is not going to be that high quality, but I still want to do it. I want to use custom frame rate, which is going to be 24 FPS. We're actually using 30 here, so I'm going to change this to 30, and I'm going to change the resolution to 1080p, so something simple. And I think we can leave the rest by default. Now I'm just going to change my output here so we can save it inside my actual project. So I'm going to save. I'm going to put that in the screenshots so they are close to the actual picture renders. So I'm going to leave that there. And I think the rest we can just say capture movie. That's going to open up a window, and it's just going to record our cinematic here. There we go, that's it. Now you can open the capture folder, You can see that we have our screenshot, so now we have our AV file here that we can just open up, and we can see our screenshot. Now, obviously, I said that the quality was not going to be great. It really isn't, because I only use 1080p. The thing is, if I increase and do this with more than 1080p, it's going to take a long time and everything. Well, I can just try it and see how it looks. So let's do that again. You can see that now it stays. It goes much more slowly. But we can just leave it running for a bit. I'm just gonna pause, wait for it to end, and then we'll see. Okay, there you go. So it has ended. I'm gonna open that up. You can see that we now have test level 2, which is our area quality one, and you can see, well, it actually looks great, or better than the other one. Then you can see the quality of the buildings here. So that actually looks better. I'm gonna leave it both of them. Okay, so let's close that up. That's what I wanted. And now let's actually go back into our content browser here, save everything, and let's actually go into our level 4 buildings. So yeah, you can see that I have all the static meshes selected. I'm going to go up here, select all the static meshes. I'm going to select them all. Let me go into speed 8, and I'm going to drag and drop my buildings here into our scene. Drag them all. You can see that we're going to our texture streaming pool budget a little bit. I'll tell you how to disable that in a second. Let's reset our buildings to 0. You can see that our buildings are here. And you can kind of see how they look. Let me remove the size of this. And you can see that they are way more detailed. And you can actually go and see all the detail up close. You can see all the windows frames, everything like that, which is pretty good. Now, again, these buildings have the pivot. Now we can just select one of the buildings, copy the location again, and now let's go and search for this building. Well, now we actually deselected the building, so we need to go into our world outliner and put the beginnings of the building correctly. So we need to go SM underscore TQ 3280 SE underscore building 0077. And I believe that's going to select all of our building pieces of the first building. So we can go into the first static mesh, into the last one, and you can see we selected everything. Let's go into the location here and just paste this. And you can see that we have moved our building into the place of the other one. So we can actually now go ahead to our other improved texture building. We can just select it and just move it down as we did it with the other one. So now we get this building up here, which is even better in terms of quality. And let's do the same with this one. Let's select one of the pieces. Now you can see that the other building, if we find the name, is going to be building 0098. So we can just go over here and switch 77498, and we can select all the static meshes. You can see it selects everything, and let's paste our location here. And now we can go to where the building is, and you can see that it snaps exactly to the correct place. We can now go to the other building, select it, and again move it down as we did it with the other one, and now we have that building right here. Yeah. Now you can see that we have a little bit of flicker. That's because this building let's select everything again. This building kind of has something over here in the sidewalks as well, but don't worry about that. We can just grab this. First of all, let me wait. Control Z that. I actually want, so click once, because we have the other building selected. Click once to deselect the other building and now select everything. And there you go. Now reset this back to 000 and then paste again. There you go. I just wanted to make sure that this was 0 because it said multiple values. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to deselect other building after, but that doesn't matter. Now just go over here and do something, do -1. You can see that the building went slightly down. You can't really see it, but it just get rid of those kind of flickering issues. And now let's select our textured version here, and again drag it down. The reason that it was selecting it's because it has the same name as the other one, because obviously it's the same building. So now the other thing that I want to do before we do our renders again with the correct version now, it's going to be, I want to go into this building here, and I want to turn this glass into something a little bit more reflective. Now before we do that, you could see that, I'm not sure if it's doing it now, you can see it's going texture over the budget. I just want to quickly disable that. Let's go into window, let's go into output log, and we go into r underscore texture streaming, and now we're going to put a 0, which is going to disable that, and now you can see that the warning will no longer appear, and all the textures will always be the highest quality they can be, because that's what texture streaming does. It lowers the resolution of textures further away to keep it in range of the budget that was assigned by the project. The reason that this warning appears so quickly is not because the assets are heavy, it's because the minimum, like the default value of the engine for texture streaming is super low. It's just a gigabyte, where normally, cities like this and stuff like that will easily have 4 or 5 gigabytes of memory budget, but it only comes with a gigabyte by default. So obviously, I just prefer to disable it, because changing the default amount, we need to go into the files of the engine and everything. I want to keep that out of the tutorial, but okay. With that explained, let's go over to the windows here. We can select all the windows over in this building, and now you can see that we have a material called glass. We can just find it over here, open that up, and we can make we can click on the main node of the material, change this to be yes, it's a surface, but instead of opaque, it's going to be translucent. Excuse me. That we can now hold one and click to add an opacity channel. We can do like something 0.5. So you can see that it's transparent kind of, and now we can add a little bit of refraction. So we can copy and paste the scalar parameter into the refraction. You can see what refraction does. It kind of bends the light that comes into the glass, which kind of gives you some of the effects that glass actually do. And I'm going to lower this to 0.2. There you go. And now you can see how that looks here. Let me lower the camera speed, and you can see that we can now oh, actually, one of the problems that we can't do this, it's because the interior of the buildings, for performance reasons, don't have interior walls, so they're only rendered on the outside. Obviously, if you use transparent windows here, it's going to create that weird effect where we can see behind the building. Obviously, we don't want that, so that actually reminds me that we can't actually use translucent glass here. So let's change this back to opaque, and instead of using refraction and opacity to create the good effect, let's do the same thing that we did with the river. Let's set the roughness to 0. And let's create another one and set the specular to something like 0.8. The specular is kind of another thing with reflections, but it kind of makes it more crisp, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it, but it just adds a little bit more detail to the reflections. So now you can see that it looks like it has kind of curtains behind the windows, but you can see the reflections of the other buildings over here in the glass. It just makes it look good. So let's save everything. Let's keep our glass material selected, because now we can go over here into this building, select our glass. Actually, let's not use the same material, because you can see that the color here is different. Let's preserve that. Let's go into our new glass material. Again, select on the glasses, click on the little browse icon here, double click that open, hold one and click to create a new roughness, and now hold one and click to connect that to specular, and just make the specular something like 0.9. Apply, and now you can see that we have nice reflections over here in the windows. Now obviously this is the default color that comes with the glass. If you don't like the color, click on this node, click on the default value, and you can change the color to whatever you want. You can change it to red if you want. I'm going to apply that, and now you can see that the windows are tinted red, but that's up to your taste. I'm going to leave the default value as it is, because it kind of looks good, and you can see with the reflections it looks pretty good. Let's save everything. Let me just check my list and see if I have everything I need. Yeah, I think I have everything. Yeah. So now what I want to do, but for last thing, I want to create another render here. Now it's already in the same place, so I think if we just go into the sequencer, let's click on the default camera so you can see the preview here and play through this. You can see the upgraded building here, and again you can see the upgraded building here. So now we can just go into render this movie to a video. Let's leave all the default values that's already here, so 2K resolution, 30 FPS, AVI file, and outputting there. Let's capture movie. And then in the end we're going to just compare basically the quality between the two. There we go. So you can see it finished. We can open capture folder, and it's going to be our level 3. And now you can see the video uh, exactly as it is, and you can see the quality of the other buildings. Let's run it again. It's pretty good. It has a little bit of motion blur, but normally, that looks good. But you can kind of see the difference between the other buildings. This is kind of like high resolution. This is even good if you want to, for example, if you're making a game, you probably want this kind of level of detail of buildings. If the player is going to walk by them and everything, it's actually pretty good. But yeah, I think that's it. We have everything here. I'm going to leave the screenshots and everything. Actually, before we go, I didn't do still renders for this new building. So let me go into F11 here, do something like that. Let's do something like that. And take a still render. So let's go into this little icon, high resolution screenshot, take a screenshot. And now let's go over the second building here. Now we can do it from the side. Can even go up close. Yeah, let's do it like this so we can keep the other building in check. Let's press G to go into game mode to hide the little spline thing there and take another screenshot. And yeah, now I'm gonna leave it here. So hopefully you guys learned a lot. I think I did everything, um, correctly for you guys to see how you can switch buildings around in the city, improve their quality, change their textures, and how to make still renders and animation renders. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.